Good afternoon, everybody. Look, trust me, this is one session where we will learn about making money out of your invention or technology, so it's going to be worth your while. So, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you. So, I'll start with a small story. Some of you may know Ajay Bhatt, who is widely known as the inventor of USB. He and his team invented USB while working at Intel. And while his team was defining the spec of USB, his wild estimate was that the technology would be worth around $40 million in the best case. Mr. Bhatt was obviously wrong by a big margin. USB is a prominent technology today, first and foremost because of the simplicity and flexibility of the technology, but in no measure can we deny the role of the decision to commercialize USB as an open standard. And the millions of dollars that went into developing the ecosystem around USB, that's what helped to extract the economic value of the technology. So this small story was to motivate the rationale for this session. This is where we will talk about commercializing innovation. Once the technology is developed, conceptualized, there are 50 other things that need to fall in place to extract economic value from that invention. And that's what we will talk about with our expert panel here. We have a diverse panelists here coming from different industries. You already heard about their background, so I will not ask them to repeat that. I will request each one of my panelists today to start off with a quick introduction. First of all, introducing their domain. So you get an idea of what is a typical product life cycle from launch to end of life in their respective domains. And also to share a small story about one new product introduction that they were a part of themselves and what is one big learning that they had coming out of that exercise. So we'll start with Vikram.
Yeah, so thanks a lot for everybody to be here. I appreciate it. I think we are standing between you and lunch, so really appreciate your patience. So I think my domain expertise is in the material science. So the company I work for, we develop materials for multiple and very diverse end-use applications. And we follow mega trends such as automotive, autonomous driving, EVs, digitization, IoTs, healthcare, revolution, aerospace, and so on. And I think the life cycle to a large extent depends, it's not really limited by the materials that we can develop. We are a pretty talented team, global teams can develop. It's more limited by the qualification time at our customers and and liability come into place. So if there are applications, healthcare, they've given the qualification time in the launch, from concept to launch, would take up to 5+ years. But in certain areas like in the 5G base stations, for instance, the digitization era, it's less than 2 years. So it kind of depends on which subsegment we are playing in. One example that I was asked to talk about is, I think one learning for us that I was involved in developing, if you look at 5G base stations, just because of complex information flow, the circuit density is becoming increasingly high, and as a result, when these stations are installed, a lot of heat generated. And if you don't account for that, it can lead to failures of devices. I was involved in developing a material which could help dissipate the heat very quickly. And what learning was, we are typically about 2 value chain steps removed from the end user. And this space, a lot of learning, our customers and their customers are learning a lot. And they were not able to give us right from the gate a set of materials requirements that they needed. So we had to work very closely with the customer to translate their device performances to material requirements. And that itself is just define the problem to provide. And so customer proximity in these mega trend and very fast evolving areas. One learning for me in that project was customer proximity and learning what they need and how it translates to what you can deliver. The critical step, and it's not trivial.
Thanks. more to Akshay. Please share the product. You come from the semiconductor domain as I do. So please share a quick overview of the product life cycle and one learning from an important product introduction that you are part of.
Hi, I'm Akshay Aggarwal. I'm Director of Engineering at MediaTek. So, for those of you who are not familiar with MediaTek, we are one of the top fabless semiconductor IC design companies in the world. And by fabless semiconductor company, we mean that we design, we architect, and design chips which go into consumer electronics like your mobile phones, TVs, Wi-Fi, etc. But we don't manufacture them. Okay, just to give an example, we hold about 40% market share worldwide for mobile products, whether it's 3G, 4G, 5G, any of those products. So, just to give you challenges in our industry, specifically for our company, we target about $3 to $4 million revenue per person. Okay, we are about 50,000 people company and we have a revenue about $20 billion. So, which means very, very important that every product decision that we are making, it has to be, you can't be ultra conservative because then you won't be able to get somewhere, but you also have to hedge your bets to make sure that you're able to do a product, which has high commercial success or high chance of commercial success. So typically in our industry, every product that is going to see commercial success is going to go through something called tapeouts, which is the manufacturing process, of course, extensive R&D, and it can cost about $10 to $15 million of cost to get it commercialized. So the biggest thing is we have to first of all make sure that the standards for that product are well defined, so that it can be very universally adopted, and that's the biggest part of the life cycle. Once the standards are adopted or defined by some industries like 3GPP, you will start designing the product, and it goes from architecture to design to actual implementation, which could be about 1 year or so. So that's the typical life cycle of a particular product once the standards are defined. Okay. Now, giving one example of where I've been personally involved is 5G projects or 5G products. Our Bangalore Design Center was involved in the development of the first 5G IC, which went into mobile products, and that was a very proud moment to be. And the challenge over there was, as a company and as a center, we had to make a decision. 5G had two standards. One is below 6 gigahertz, and the other is millimeter wave, which is about 30 gigahertz, 40 gigahertz. Which standard to adopt? And depending on where you actually hedge your bets or where you put your money, the investment could be very different. And so, as a company, we decided to go towards the 5G sub 6 gigahertz, and it was a good decision. We had to make it was a tough decision also because our competitor was going towards the second technology, but we decided that it's a hype cycle right now. It's not very technologically safe to do that. There are a lot of risks over there, and after doing all the market study, we decided to go with the first kind of product, and we had good success over there. So I think we had to make decisions, but in this case, things worked out for our favor. So.
Thanks, Akshay. Rohit, in addition to introducing the life cycle in your domain, can I also request you to address common pitfalls that come about in opportunity sizing, which is a critical step when taking an innovation to the market. It's important to understand the size of the opportunity that you're going after, and especially in the sector that Rohit comes from, healthcare. It is prone to a lot of vanity metrics. Healthcare data is worth $6 trillion. What does that mean to you? So, can you address some of the common pitfalls when sizing the opportunity for an innovation?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I think pharma industry or healthcare industry is something that we are all familiar with. I think not very intimate with, but we are familiar with a lot of happening in the pharma industry, right? And it does get a lot of headlines. It does get a lot of buzzwords. But what I have been involved in over the last few years, and I briefly mentioned that, is we've been working with all the top pharma companies across the globe in commercializing their innovation. And over the last 5 years, I've been involved in almost close to about 50 products, many of them that you use on a very frequent basis. Commercializing them across their life cycle, understanding what it takes to make them profitable, and understanding how do you best ensure that these products reach the desired patients. Because at the core of all pharma decisions are the patient care. So profitability, and that does get a lot of buzzword. But how do you basically help the patients in their day-to-day lives, either through cure or the maintenance of their conditions? And that's something that we work on very closely. Now, talking about the pitfalls, right? I think one of the key elements of any pharma launch or any pharma commercialization is the forecasting process. And there's something called as epidemiology, which is basically understanding the patient burden of a disease. This is a very research-oriented activity, and where we are looking through a lot of publications, we are looking through a lot of surveys to understand how prevalent a particular disease is. How many patients typically get diagnosed year over year? Is the diagnosis increasing? Is it decreasing? How do you best ensure that the patients that are diagnosed do get the treatment? And then once they do get the treatment, do they continue to remain on the treatment till they either get cured or they progress onto something that can be managed by another product? Right? So this element becomes a very critical part of a drug evaluation. So the forecasting and the epidemiology forecast especially is something that is also close to my heart. I kind of did that for quite a number of years before deciding to broaden out a little bit and then understand how that forecast is being consumed by the end users at the pharma companies. So, critical element here is, of course, the forecasting being data driven, but at the same time being able to understand what are the nuances that might impact this forecast going into the future. Because a lot of this forecast is based on historical data, right? And how do you account for the market events that are going to influence this in the future? Typically, when you're talking about a US market, for example, a lot of drug launches or the success of a drug launch depends on how the insurance is reimbursing. Right? So are you able to show the benefits of a drug during the clinical trial that the insurance will later reimburse during the launch phase? So as an innovator, you have to think about designing clinical trials, keeping in mind what the insurance companies are looking for. Now that becomes an important element, and a lot of really wonderful drugs have not been able to hit their full potential because insurance simply did not cover it and it became too costly for the patients to afford. So that is something that I really look forward to and understand when we are discussing this with different pharma companies, their innovators, their medical research teams along with.
Okay, thanks, Rohit. So, opportunity sizing is one area where you're brought down to earth after the initial fancy analysis about what your technology is worth. And it's important to have a realistic estimate of what is the opportunity that you're going after. Now, the second phase where you will again be brought down, you'll be met with humility, is a phase called the product market fit. You come into the market with a product, you try to address a particular market segment, and then you realize that there is maybe a little bit more correction that is required to your opportunity assessment. So I request Praveen, you are in the EV space, which means with a lot of hype of late. So can you cite some examples of where you were attacked with this problem, that you went in with an assessment of the opportunity of the market, but once inside, you had to rationalize your assumptions about the opportunity?
Yeah, thanks for having me on the panel. Thanks for sharing the mic. So, yeah, I think the product market fit, this EV space is, as you know, it's evolving and not much is well established. Everything a lot of things come from China or other countries. We talk about many things, but most of the things are import. So, I took a chance to say, okay, what do we do here indigenously? The government has put so many norms and all these things. Then I said, let me start with a humble beginning. Let's do a 250 watt motor, BLDC motor, set up a plant. I was very naive. I'm coming from engineering side, no business, economics background. So some reality checks. So you make some assumptions, and unless you validate those assumptions, you will run into challenges. So we started small. So what is the product in effect? Right? Yeah, we know people are importing motors, BLDC motors. Nobody is making in India. And we got a 250 watt power. We said we'll size this motor for electric bicycles. Maybe we can use for two-wheelers, but for low speed application. It doesn't go more than 25 speed and weight. So, yeah, we took that, but we had to compete with China, which has already been doing this for 15 years, and the quality and the reliability and the cost are very difficult for me to source the parts and build it and compete at scale, which are not there at scale. Even the 250 watt motors fit in our cycles, but if you go to northeast, there are desi cycles. It has different number of spokes, like a large population in West Bengal, Assam, all the northeast they usually or the typical class cycles. So the product doesn't fit into that. Luckily, we realized that and we changed that so that we could adapt it to that market. So that was another, we learned from the market that we need to adapt to that. Now, if I go to Kerala and other places, hilly areas, the 250 size, people are complaining, hey, I have to pedal to give that extra power. I'm not able to use this motor, I need much more bigger motor. Now the government rule says 250, but people are selling 350 and getting away with it. Two-wheeler scooter, they said, okay, give me ARI, I don't need a certification, just give me that thing 250, I can use it, but then they come back and complain that this is not fast enough or doesn't take more than 2 people. So these were the challenges, and we finally had come to a certain solution with the voltage and the right sizing motor. And there is a lot of pull from the market, we're in the process of scaling it. And similarly, there are other applications come. I was just aware, sorry, I started to step out from Flipkart. They're motorizing their trolleys in their warehouses. So we did 50 of them. Now they want 2,000. But there was a lot of effect because just putting on an existing trolley and another motor, you can put another chair and we can run. But how people use it and handle it was a huge learning for us. So we had to make many adaptations. We've been trying for two years, but we took 2 months to get to the right product fit. So that was a lot.
That's great. That's right. Now, I want to touch upon the innovation pipeline management. Innovation pipeline typically tends to be a funnel. There are a lot of ideas going in, but very few ideas should come out of the other end of the funnel. So I want to pose this question to Dr. Vikram, that how do you decide to qualify an innovation, come out of the pipeline and get funded? And what should be a healthy success rate for you to assess the quality of your innovation pipeline?
Yeah, so I think the way we assess is each project. Firstly, step one is there's a metrics called DFV, desirability, feasibility, and viability. Desirability is why does the customer need it? What is the unmet need? The customers have solutions in the marketplace, but if you want to introduce something new, what is it that they're not getting today? Define that. F, which is feasibility, is why do you think our company, why do we think we can satisfy that unmet need as a product, material product? And why do we think that we can create differentiation versus competitors? Because I think in our space, we are competing with 10 plus people in the material space who are going after very similar opportunities. So step two, which is feasibility, is why do we think as a company we can develop a material which will provide us differentiation over our competition? And viability, the last step is why do we think we can make money? And in the end, it's a business. We have to make money. So as we look at programs across all the market mega trends that I talked about earlier, automotive, digitization, aerospace, aviation, healthcare, we start to map these opportunities in that framework. The three. Why do our customers need it? Unmet need. Why do we think we can do it with differentiation and see how do we think we can make money? And we start to rank opportunities around these three dimensions. These appear to be very simple, but if you dig deeper, you need a pretty extensive, knowledgeable, cross-functional team to start mapping these out. And you start doing that across opportunities, and you start developing a metrics of how your pipeline looks like. And when you start off, the deviation accuracy of this DFE is maybe plus minus 30-40%, because you're just stepping in, there's still quite a bit unknowns. But as you go through the funnel, and we do have a toll gate management process, as you go through that, the expectation is the error bar in these dimensions goes from 30-40% to 15-20, and then as you go on further to plus minus 5-10%. So that's how we map opportunities, and through toll gates we manage that, and through toll gates expect more and more deeper information and accurate information as we go along. That's how we make decisions. It's not a one-time process. One way at starting you may have these 10 opportunities ranked with error bars, but as you go through the toll gate process, you reconvene with a multifunctional team, let's say 3-4 months later, with new information, that ranking may change. So you need agility. You need agility to handle that, and it's never a static pipeline. It evolves, especially if you're chasing mega trends that we are. It evolves because there are, as a lot of my colleagues here, peers have mentioned, a lot of unknowns. Our customers and their customers are learning these spaces, and so we have knowledge to start with, which has to be refined and be made more accurate as we go along. So it's a dynamic process.
One another point I feel is important for innovators to consider that when we talk about innovation in new technology, we think about things that don't exist today, right? Something novel, and we want to be first to the market. Now, commercially, if you think about it, there is merit in being second to the market as well. So I would like Akshay to shine light upon this topic that fast follow, especially in your industry, semiconductor industry, it takes a lot of money for a stepping. So is fast follower a good commercialization strategy?
I think that's an excellent question, because there's always a debate of whether you want to be the fast follower or you want to be the risk taker and go and do something which is not there as yet. So at MediaTek we've had both approaches, and luckily we've been successful in both the approaches. So as a fast follower, I think the approach is, hey, a particular product has already got commercial success. Now, how can we do it better, faster, and at a cheaper price point? So that's what we call as democratizing the technology. So one of the success factors for MediaTek has been, when we started the company back in 2000, there were many mobile chip makers out there who were making these mobile phones, Nokia's and Ericsson's and Motorola, etc. And MediaTek was coming up. So just being a component supplier for a mobile phone would not be something a differentiator. So now we know that mobile phone is a success factor, but what do you do differently? So we were trying to be a fast follower, but with a twist. And what was the twist? We noticed that the people who were making the mobile phones, and all these Nokia's and Ericsson's and Motorola's, were thousands and thousands and thousands of engineers who can pump money into making a new mobile phone. How about we, as MediaTek, not just be a component supplier, we give the entire reference board or the board that is there in your mobile phone with all the components pre-tested out there, so that a no-name customer, or a customer with minimum R&D could quickly, test the phone, slap some ID around it, and sell it. Which means, the time to actually market that particular phone is much reduced. And the phone maker could now focus on marketing the product rather than testing this component from this guy, and doing all that stuff. Because of which we got so much success, that we were able to get into the smartphone market much faster, and we were able to unseat some of the players who were already out there. So this was an example of fast follow. And one good thing, and then we changed the strategy for 5G. We said, fast follow is good, but can we actually also be innovators and doing something first? And we were one of the first ones to launch 5G, and that was a big commercial success. Thank you.
Thanks for that. We're running short of time, but I want to pose this question to Praveen. I'm sure he is a little bit in trouble. So as I got into product management, my first learning was that engineering is, of course, the core of the success, but that's not enough. That's a necessary condition, not a sufficient condition. There are other business functions that come into play when you have to successfully commercialize a technology. What are those business functions? Sales, marketing, customer support. These are, at some point, these become even more important than engineering itself. So I'm sure that as a founder, Praveen has met that experience. So can you share something about how you realize the importance of sales, marketing, customer support?
I think she is sitting on something which I miserably failed. So she caught me my earlier conversation today morning. But like I've been always on the advanced technology side of things, not even in regular engineering, more out there kind of thing. And philosophically and also with passion, I used to always argue why doesn't the business leaders consider these ideas and why can't they take risks and your frequently code, see job and how they took risks. Well, I did all those words when I became an entrepreneur and started doing it. And as I said, one of the biggest, and unless you are in that, no matter how much we talk about it, you will not realize it. But the moment I started with it, the first thing is, oh, we can do this, we can do that, we can do this. So every part like e-brakes, throttle, and I'm going after trying to build products. Little I was thinking about the supply chain. Is the supply chain in the country ready to provide me all these small little parts? Then the cost, the expertise that you need in order to do these things. Then the scaling factors. And do you have a manufacturing setup to scale them? Yeah, conceptually you can build all these things and make it work and get very excited. The next step, the scaling part is, I was falling flat on, and I always downgrading, not downgrading, this thing like marketing, sales, yeah, we'll do it, don't worry. My website also was not that great to even somebody to go and check. But later we saw the sales coming down and, the supply chain relationships, the quality of after sales support. We are doing a lot of those things, but I was predominantly the lion's share of my attention was going into the product development. Big mistake because you develop a product, you need to mature it, you need to really. Many customers came to my place and said, I don't know about your product. This is the first time I'm hearing about it. Then even my wife kept saying simple things like, put it on a newspaper, send it to them. People know that you exist. So that was a big blind spot, to be honest, because I'm overridden with the development side of things.
It tends to be a blind spot for a lot of founders who come from the engineering background, and it's important to shine the spotlight on that. Rohit, I'll give you the last word. You come from healthcare, which sees a lot of attention from startups, new technologies coming up every other day. Can you list 3 technologies in your line of sight, and how? And can you put a categorization that is that technology right for a short-term, medium-term, long-term commercialization opportunity? And we'll close with that.
Sure. Thank you so much. So I think yes. So there are. Yes, it has get that. I will say it is very profitable from a short-term as well as a long-term perspective. You have to stay in the business to be. And for biotechs or for innovators in this space, right? So I think there are 3 key areas that is kind of thinking about this. Walking into this room is first is of course on the innovation side of drug discovery, right? So can we get to market faster? There's a lot of time. So typically, if a drug spends about 21 years from pre-clinical to launch and to commercialization and in life cycle, 14 years are in the clinical stages. Right? Can you get to market faster? We saw this with the vaccines. When there was a need, the drugs came out, the vaccines came out really quickly, right? And people were willing to, kind of soften the regulation. So can you get to market faster? What is the technology? And we're talking about Gen AI, we're talking about a lot of good computation skills now. Can you get to market faster? So that's on the innovation side of the actual drug discovery. Second comes in terms of the manufacturing of the drugs. It is very cost intensive and it is very difficult to maintain that supply chain. And I'll take a little bit of time. So there was a particular drug in the US that faced a severe crunch because of cyclones hitting their manufacturing plants, and there were only 3 factories in the Western Hemisphere that was manufacturing it. One factory completely was destroyed. So the drug, it was a cancer drug. It faced a severe shortage in the US because one of the factories was completely destroyed. So can we democratize it and can we decentralize it and have smaller manufacturing at scale? to get to the market faster, and can that be the innovation? And the third, which is probably closest to our hearts, is how can we help the patients, right? So we're talking about telehealth, and probably this is going to be the most important and the short-term benefits that we're going to see is how do we improve the telehealth part of it, right? So remote health, telehealth, faster diagnosis, faster treatments, and more continuous management and monitoring of the health. India sees a lot of diabetes patients. We're going to be we have the largest load of diabetic patients across the world. How do we manage it? Are we going to get into a situation where insulin becomes a norm and half the population has to be on insulin as a result? I don't think that's the future that we want to look forward to. So how do we diagnose it? How do we treat it? How do we raise that awareness? And how do we make sure that India in general becomes more healthy as we go? So those are the three spaces that I think are really ripe for innovation and commercialization.
Thanks, Rohit. That's all from my arsenal of questions. If there are any pressing questions in the room, we can take one or two. Go ahead, we do have one. Remember, you're standing in between us and lunch.
One question for one panelist, and lunch is a little bit fast.
Thank you very much for the wonderful discussion here. Being a fellow material scientist here, so I see there is this concept called design for manufacturability that's there in the industry. So I work in the healthcare industry as well. So I earned my PhD in material science. So I know there is a gap between doing things in the lab and doing things for production. So could you, any of the panelists, comment on how to fill that gap?
May I suggest, this is a very broad question.
Okay.
Do you mind if we take this offline? I think you can chat about any of the panelists. It would be a better discussion if we do it longer term and not a 1 minute.
No
My
problem.
personal recommendation.
Yes.
Like in semiconductor industry, there's a lot of skilling and a lot of
Sir,
education.
sir, mic, sir.
With that sort of look into the industry also.
Do you want me to take that?
Yeah.
You mean on the litigation challenges? Don't know exactly what is the one-to-one match there, but I think there are challenges in terms of the speeds, the safety protocols and all that. So there we are yet to learn.
So my personal opinion, coming from semiconductor, any industry which is super tech heavy, you need to build an arsenal of IP for yourself.
I think that on the EV, on the material side, to answer your question, on the material side, I think I talked about multiple people going to the same space. I think a lot of companies in material science, as the industry moved from IC to EV, they started working on that over a number of years. And to get to the end point of what is needed material-wise, everybody knows what the target is. And look at the solution space, it's a box. Like everybody's thinking that box. And everybody is thinking around to build barriers for others to enter. Experimenting what is available. The white space is fast disappearing. So even though you don't see it now, but I think 5-10 years from now, you would have a lot of dedication. Everybody is taking the same box to satisfy the unmet need.
Thanks. With that, we'll close the session. Thank you for your attention.